In this video, we'll discuss WindowBlocker's Window Manager tab. So the best way to understand this tab is to understand what problem it actually attempts to solve. So let's say you sit down at your computer and you're working on a new project. In this example, we're going to pretend that you're working on a new song, that you're doing audio editing. This is just an example. Any example will do, but in this example, say you're doing an audio editing job. So one of the first things we tend to do when starting up our computer is to search for the files that we'll need for our project. So in this example, I have a little sample file folder on my desktop, and I'll navigate to my files. So we're making a song, so one of the things I might need would be my drum sounds folder, and then another folder I might need would be the sample folder I've created called guitar sounds. And if we're working with audio, then we're going to need an audio editor, so I might start by using Audacity and starting that up. And we're going to need an audio sequencer, so I actually use Sony Acid, so we'll start that up. And we might need our web browser and go to a site like soundcloud.com. So I'll start up that website. That's pretty popular with musicians. So already you can see the many different environments I've created on my screen here. We have these file folders which contain our music audio files on our computer. We have these two applications, Audacity and Sony Acid, for manipulating the audio files. And then we have a web browser. SoundCloud.com is running in the Chrome web browser. So during your typical workday, you'll probably spend a lot of time doing tasks like this, starting up these three different types of environments, at least at various stages in your workday, in your project. You'll be starting up file folders, applications, and websites. And you'll find yourself constantly dragging file folders around and starting different applications that you need, and then web browsers, and navigating to the websites that you need, and moving file folders to different locations. And you pretty much do that all day long. Now, setting all this up is hard enough, but another problem comes up when I want to change projects or shut down my computer. So when I do this, of course, all of the applications and file folders and websites that I started just go away. And of course, when I come back to this music editing project, I have to repeat all the steps that we just did at the start of this video. And not only that, but I have to sort of remember where everything is for each project on my hard drive. Particularly, I'll have to remember where I've stored various files, and that can be tricky if you're working on a complex project. Okay, so how does WindowBlocker solve this problem? Let's open WindowBlocker's Window Manager tab, and you can see here I've created a project called Music Editing. And when I click the Create button, you can see that WindowBlocker is creating the two file folders that are associated with this project, the drum sounds and the guitar sounds. These are stored right here in the file folder grid. Now I'll start up the applications and websites that I need for this project by simply going to the icons and doing click, click, click. And you can see all my programs and websites have been started. So I hope you can see the value here. This is a major time saver. But more importantly, when you start to think of your Windows desktop in terms of projects, not just Windows, then it really helps to keep yourself organized and productive. A task that I used to do repeatedly every day, I can now just do in a couple seconds. So now what happens when I need to switch to a different task, when I need a whole different set of file folders, applications, and websites? So let's close our existing environment. And we'll bring Window Blocker back up by clicking on the blue clock icon, which is always in the lower right of your screen. And you can see I've made a second environment called Sell My House. So let's say another project you were working on was selling a home, or perhaps you're a realtor, or maybe you're buying a home. Again, the project doesn't matter. This is just an example project, but let's say you're in real estate, and so you might have a folder called House Pictures. And you might have a folder for maps or parcel maps. And you might have links to realty websites like Zillow.com. And you might have an Excel spreadsheet that holds your financing information. Now, without Window Blocker, you'd have to navigate to various locations on your computer to individually start all this stuff up. But with Window Blocker, it's so easy. We'll just click the Create button, and our file folders are now ready to go. And we'll click our website link and our application link, and these are started as well. And it's really easy, of course, to switch projects, because once I'm done with one project, I can just close my windows down, and I can simply go to my music project and click the Create button. So my other music project file folders are back, and of course, to switch back again to my real estate file folders, I just do the same thing. So how do you actually create your own project in Window Blocker? Well, it's easy. For this example, I'm just going to create a category called Sample, and I'm going to put a new desktop in it. We're going to call this Music Editing 2, and I'm just going to recreate what we created in the Music Editing 1 sample. So you'll recall in the original sample we had drum sounds, guitar sounds. These are our two file folders. We had two applications associated with this project, the Audacity Audio Editor and the Sony Acid Sequencer. And we had SoundCloud.com associated as a website with this project. So let's go back up to our new music editing project, and you can see the three grids are all blank because nothing has become associated with this project yet. So the way we associate shortcuts and applications with Window Blocker is no different than the way you're already doing it. It's the same way you drag pretty much anything in Microsoft Windows. So let's go get Sony Acid and drag it in. It's right here in the Start menu, so I just drag it and drop it, and now it's in our Window Manager Applications grid. And you'll recall that we also had Audacity there, so I'll just get Audacity in the same way. And now both of our applications have become associated with our project, Music Editing 2. Now let's go ahead and open up our web browser, and we're going to bring SoundCloud.com in. So you can see I've just navigated to the SoundCloud website, and again I'll just drag and drop it into the websites grid. So now how do we get our two file folders into our file path grid? Now we can do the same drag and drop method that we just did for the bottom two grids, or we can just press our camera icon here, and when we do that, Window Blocker will just take a snapshot of the current locations of our file folders, and it will just place them right into the grid. And that's all there is to it. We've just created a new music editing project, Music Editing 2. I hope you can see how easy that is, and once you start saving your desktops like this, then you'll start to notice how useful this application can be. I wouldn't want to use my computer without Window Blocker these days because I have thousands of file folders in my hard drive, and I used to spend a lot of time just setting up my folders each time I was getting ready to work on a project. I'd be dragging folders around the screen and then clicking the start button and looking for programs and then starting up my web browser and individually typing in the websites that I need. That takes up a lot of time, and I'd have to do it multiple times each day, and I'd have to remember the locations of multiple items in my head, and that gets a little tedious. But With Window Blocker, it's so easy because you can just take a snapshot of your desktop and it will always be there ready to work when you are. Because your file folders, applications, and websites can be grouped together in a similar fashion to the way that they're grouped together in your brain. Now, lastly, I'd like to talk about a new feature that is available in the most recent release of Window Blocker, and that is our new Search Window Manager bar here. Now, this actual search box will appear on every Window Blocker tab. And as you start to use it, you'll quickly begin to notice how useful it is, because you can do things like type the name of any of the items that appear here in your various Window Blocker desktops, and the search box will give you even easier access to it. So for example here, if I type Audacity, or just the first couple characters of the word Audacity, you'll notice that the item already appears in our list of search results. This is really convenient because I can right-click on the item and either launch it or locate it, or simply click on the item and just launch the app. And of course you'll notice Audacity has just started up. So this seems like a rather simple item, but it actually becomes very useful very fast, because as you start building Window Blocker desktops and as you incorporate Window Blocker into your life, as I have, then you'll find that you often tend to drag websites and applications to your various desktops here, and that you'll find that you actually start the same applications and items again and again and again. And it's very nice to use Window Blocker, especially with the shortcut key Control W. Recall that Control W will minimize and maximize Window Blocker. So as you're working with your other applications, you can just simply press Control W, like I just did now, and then start typing the name of the item you're looking for. In this case, Audacity was the music app that we were considering launching, and then just simply click that here. So with just a few steps, you're able to locate the apps that you use during your daily tasks. Again, assume you're working on something else in Windows. You press Control W and then AUD, or whatever the first letters are of the item you want to launch, and then just launch it with your app. This is a process that I go through probably a couple hundred times per day. I'm always pressing the Control W key because I'm always either starting apps or using the various different functions in Window Blocker, especially the punch clock and the focus session. And particularly this new search box, the Window Blocker search box, is very useful because it allows you to very, very quickly access all of the applications and websites that you use for your various ongoing projects.